The unexpected war. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The war had started suddenly, catching everyone off guard. The invaders came from the sky, metallic beasts with glowing red eyes, tearing through cities like paper. They were not just soldiers, they were machines. Their bodies were made of steel, their weapons far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Mira had watched it all happen from her wheelchair, unable to do anything but witness the destruction. She had been in that chair for over a decade, ever since the accident that had taken her ability to walk. Once, she had been a fighter, a brilliant athlete who had lived for the thrill of movement. But that life was gone. Now, she was just another helpless survivor, trapped in a broken body while the world burned around her. She had no way to fight. No way to run. When the explosions rocked the city, she could do nothing but wait. The screams of people filled the air as buildings collapsed. The sky turned black with smoke. And Mira, sitting in the ruins of what was once her home, knew that this was the end. Then, she saw him. A lone soldier, dressed in battle-scarred armor, running through the chaos. He moved like a ghost, fast and precise, dodging enemy fire with an almost unnatural grace. He was human, but something about him was different. Unlike the others, he wasn't retreating. He was fighting back. Mira watched in shock as he took down 3 of the machines on his own, using nothing but a blade and pure skill. He moved faster than her eyes could follow. He was like a legend from the old war stories, unstoppable. Then, as if he could feel her eyes on him, he turned. Their gazes met for just a moment. Mira didn't know why, but in that instant, something inside her shifted. For the first time in years, she felt something other than despair. Hope. And then, just as quickly as he had appeared, he was gone, vanishing into the smoke. Mira didn't know who he was. But she knew one thing. If anyone could change the fate of this war, it was him. And maybe, just maybe, he could change her fate too. The soldier and the broken girl. Smoke curled through the shattered city, its acrid scent burning Mira's throat. The ground trembled as another explosion rippled through the ruins, sending shards of glass clattering across the cracked pavement. She tightened her grip on the wheels of her chair, her pulse hammering in her ears. She should have been afraid. She should have been helpless. But her mind was still caught on the man she had seen, the soldier who fought like a ghost, vanishing into the chaos as if he were never there. She didn't know what drove her to move. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the sheer, raw frustration of a life spent trapped, unable to fight back. Or maybe, just maybe, it was hope. With a deep breath, Mira pushed forward. The streets were a graveyard of fallen machines and abandoned cars. Shadows twisted in the smoke, making it impossible to tell who was human and who wasn't. She needed to find him. She needed to find the soldier. The soldier's name was Cade. He had spent years fighting wars in places no human should have survived. He had seen men fall, cities burn, and civilizations crumble under the weight of an enemy far stronger than anything humanity could handle. Yet, he had never given up. Cade wasn't like the others. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a survivor. And in that moment, as he crouched behind the wreckage of a fallen building, reloading his weapon with quick, practiced movements, he felt something different in the air. A presence. He turned, and there she was. A girl in a battered wheelchair, her dark eyes burning with something he hadn't seen in a long time. Determination. Mira stared up at him, her hands trembling against the cold metal of her chair. She had no idea what to say. What did you say to a man who could single-handedly cut down machines like they were nothing? But Cade spoke first. You should be hiding, he said. His voice was rough, edged with exhaustion. Mira swallowed. I've spent 10 years hiding, she said. I'm done. For a long moment, Cade didn't move. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not a soft smile. Not a comforting one. A wolf's grin. Mira had seen many things in her life. But never, not once, had she seen someone look at her wheelchair and not see a weakness. Cade didn't see a broken girl. He saw something else. "All right," he said, standing up. "Let's see what you can do." And with that, he turned and walked into the smoke, leaving Mira no choice but to follow. She didn't know it then, but that was the moment everything changed. The war. Her fate. And maybe, just maybe, the future of humanity itself. A deal with the devil. Myra's hands trembled as she pushed her wheels over the uneven pavement, the jagged remains of the city scraping against her skin. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to find a safe corner and disappear. But she had spent too long being invisible. Not this time. Not when she had finally found someone who didn't look at her like she was fragile. Ahead, Cade moved like a shadow, his every step precise, controlled. He barely made a sound. Even as the city crumbled around them, even as the air itself felt heavy with death, he walked like he owned the battlefield. Mira had spent years watching warriors from the sidelines, soldiers, fighters, survivors. But Cade was different. He wasn't just fighting to survive. He was hunting. "You're slowing me down," he said without turning around. Mira clenched her jaw. "Then leave me behind." Cade finally stopped. He turned, his sharp blue eyes locking onto hers. The firelight from a burning building flickered across his face, casting shadows over the deep scars lining his cheek. "You want to walk again?" he asked. Myra's breath caught. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. She had spent years dreaming of standing again, of running, of fighting, of being something more than a broken girl in a metal chair. But she had never thought it would be possible. She swallowed hard. "Yes." Cade smirked. "Then you're going to have to prove it." The bunker was hidden beneath the remains of an old hospital. Cade led her inside without a word, moving through the shadows like he belonged to them. Mira followed, her breath coming in short, uneven gasps as she rolled her chair down the long, dimly lit hallway. Inside, the room was cluttered with weapons, maps, and technology she didn't recognize. Holographic screens flickered to life as Cade moved past them, scanning battlefield reports, enemy movements, and something else, something that made Myra's stomach twist. Blueprints. For cybernetic limbs. Myra's heart pounded. She licked her lips, her mouth suddenly dry. "You weren't lying." Cade leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Never said I was." She stared at the screen, at the sleek, metallic limbs that looked more advanced than anything she had ever seen before. "This isn't just some prosthetic." "No," Cade said. "It's a weapon." Mira inhaled sharply. Cade studied her, his expression unreadable. "I can build you legs that will let you do more than just walk. You'll be stronger. Faster. A fighter." He leaned in slightly. "But if I do this, you won't get to be normal anymore." Myra's fingers curled against the cold metal of her chair. "Normal?" she echoed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "I haven't been normal in 10 years. Cade watched her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right," he said. "Then let's get started." Built for war. The cold metal pressed against Myra's skin like ice. She clenched her fists as Cade adjusted the straps, securing her in place on the operating table. The dim blue light from the monitors flickered across the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The bunker smelled of metal, oil, and something faintly burnt, like old circuits that had been pushed too far. "This is your last chance," Cade said, standing over her. His voice was calm, steady, but his eyes searched hers. "Once I start, there's no turning back." Mira swallowed hard. For 10 years, she had been trapped in a broken body. For 10 years, she had been forced to watch others run, fight, live, while she was left behind. And now, she had a choice. Not to be fixed. To be rebuilt. She exhaled slowly. Do it. Cade gave a small, approving nod before pulling a mask over her face. Try not to die, he said, flicking a switch. The world turned black. When Mira woke up, she wasn't the same. The pain was the first thing she noticed, a deep, bone-deep ache where her legs used to be. But beneath the pain, there was something new. Movement. She felt weight. Balance. A sensation she hadn't felt in over a decade. She opened her eyes. The room was still dark, illuminated only by the glow of the screens. Cade stood nearby, watching her carefully. Her breath came in short gasps as she moved her fingers experimentally, then. Her legs twitched. Her legs. Myra's heart pounded as she looked down. The sleek, black metal of her new limbs gleamed under the dim light, wires running seamlessly into her flesh. They were powerful, intricate, unlike anything she had ever seen before. She felt them. She clenched her jaw and pushed herself up. Her body swayed, her brain struggling to process something so unnatural, yet so right. She stood. For the first time in 10 years. Her breath hitched. She expected to feel weak, unstable, but instead, she felt strong. Faster. Lighter. The air around her seemed different, sharper. Every detail, every sound, was more vivid, more precise. Her body wasn't just working again. It was enhanced. Cade folded his arms. Not bad, he said. Mira turned to face him, her eyes burning. You didn't just fix me. No, Cade said, a smirk playing at his lips. I made you a weapon. She exhaled, electricity humming beneath her skin. She wasn't just standing. She was ready to fight. The first kill. Myra's new legs hummed with energy, the sleek metal gleaming under the bunker's dim lights. Every movement felt different. Not just natural, better. Stronger. Faster. Like she had been waiting her whole life to feel this way. Cade tossed her a small metal rod. She caught it without thinking, her reflexes so sharp that it shocked even her. She stared at the weapon in her hands, realizing it wasn't just a rod. It was a blade, thin as a whisper, sharp enough to cut through steel. Good, Cade muttered. Your neural link is syncing faster than expected. Mira flexed her fingers. She could feel the weapon like it was a part of her. The same way she could feel every inch of her new legs. A slow grin spread across her lips. I could get used to this. Cade chuckled. Don't get cocky. You haven't even been in a real fight yet. He turned, pressing a button on the wall. A door slid open, revealing a dark tunnel leading to the surface. The sound of distant gunfire echoed down from above. The war wasn't over. And Cade had just turned her into a soldier. The city was still burning. Mira stepped onto the ruined streets, feeling the heat of the smoldering wreckage under her new cybernetic feet. Cade moved ahead, his gaze locked on something in the distance. Then, movement. A machine emerged from the smoke, its metal limbs clicking as its red eyes scanned the area. It was a scout, one of the enemy's hunting drones. Myra's heart slammed against her ribs. Before, she would have frozen. Before, she would have been helpless. But she wasn't the same girl anymore. The drone's head snapped toward them. Its weapon whined to life, but Mira moved first. Faster than thought. Faster than fear. Her legs propelled her forward, the world blurring around her as she launched into the air. The machine tried to track her, too slow. She twisted mid-air, raising the blade Cade had given her. And slammed it straight through the machine's skull. Sparks exploded. The drone collapsed, its red eyes flickering before going dark. Mira landed smoothly, crouching in the rubble. Her breathing was fast, but steady. She had done it. She had killed it. She turned to Cade, expecting shock. Instead, he was grinning. "Damn," he muttered. "I think I just created a monster." Mira rose to her feet, feeling the power thrumming beneath her skin. "No," she said softly. "I think you just set me free. The predator becomes the prey." Myra's hands trembled, not with fear, but with exhilaration. The drone lay in pieces at her feet, its metal skull split open by her blade. Sparks flickered in the dim light like dying embers. The weight of her kill settled over her, heavy yet intoxicating. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't weak. She was something else now. Something dangerous. Cade watched her, arms crossed. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something she couldn't place. Approval? Or calculation? Before she could ask, the ground shook. A low, mechanical growl rumbled from the ruins beyond them. The air grew thick with the scent of smoke. The hunter's mistake. The first kill had been too easy. Mira still felt the aftershock of it, the way the machine's body had crumpled beneath her blade. The way her new legs had moved on their own, faster than thought, faster than fear. She had expected hesitation. She had expected doubt. Instead, she had felt nothing. No regret. No hesitation. No guilt. Just power. She turned to Cade, expecting another smirk, another remark about how fast she was learning. But he wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't even looking at her. He was looking past her. Mira frowned and followed his gaze. Then, a red light flickered in the distance. 1. Then 2. Then dozens. The shadows in the ruined city shifted, the silence growing heavy. Her stomach twisted. She had thought she was the hunter. She was wrong. She had been seen. A scream of metal tore through the air as the first machine lunged. Mira barely had time to react. Her new legs kicked in, sending her skidding back just as the enemy's claws sliced through the space where her head had been. Sparks exploded in the dark. Another came from the side. Then another. They weren't just drones. They were war machines, larger, faster, built for killing. She wasn't fighting one anymore. She was fighting a pack. Cade's gun roared, cutting one of them down before it could reach her. But there were too many. "Mira, move," he barked. She didn't need to be told twice. Her body reacted before her mind could process it, her new cybernetic legs launching her forward like a bullet. The city blurred around her as she ducked, spun, dodged, a mechanical beast snapping at her heels. She had never moved like this before. Never been this fast, this alive. She twisted midair, grabbing onto a collapsing wall and pushing off with inhuman strength. The ground cracked where she landed, her metal limbs absorbing the impact. A machine charged at her. She met it head-on. Her blade flashed, slicing through steel as easily as flesh. The machine's head went flying, its body crashing into the rubble. Another came at her from behind. She ducked, her new reflexes guiding her like instinct. She spun, slammed a kick into its chest. Her metal foot punched through armor like paper, sending it flying into a rusted-out car. But more were coming. Too many. And they were learning. Mira gritted her teeth, forcing herself to breathe. Her body could keep up. But her mind? She wasn't sure. She had spent 10 years trapped in a body that refused to move. Now, she was moving too fast, her brain struggling to keep up with the raw, mechanical instinct her cybernetic limbs had awakened. She was losing control. Cade's voice cut through the chaos. "Mira. On me, now." She barely had time to register his words before he was moving, dragging her back, just as a war machine detonated where she had been standing. The shockwave sent her crashing into a wall. For a second, everything blurred. Her head rang. Her vision swam. Then, Cade's hand grabbed her collar and hauled her up. She tried to stand, but her new legs stuttered, sparks flickering at her knees. Overloaded. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The cybernetics were strong. Too strong. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. Cade's voice was sharp. We need to go. Now. The ground shook beneath them. More red lights blinked in the distance. Hundreds. Mira clenched her fists, her breathing uneven. She had thought she was ready. She had thought she was strong. But she wasn't the hunter yet. Reforged in fire. Myra's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Her legs twitched, sparks flickering along the seams where flesh met machine. The cybernetics were still trying to keep up with her, but her mind? She wasn't fast enough yet. The war machines were closing in. A sea of red eyes burned through the smoke, their bodies moving in eerie unison. Silent. Calculating. Predators. And she was prey. For now. Cade's grip on her arm was tight. On your feet, he ordered. Now. Mira tried to push up, but her body refused to move. The overload had shorted something. Her limbs felt foreign, like they weren't hers anymore. Her stomach twisted. She had spent years trapped in a body that wouldn't listen to her. Was this just another cage? No. Not again. Not this time. Her fingers curled into a fist. She wasn't weak. Not anymore. Mira exhaled sharply and slammed her palm into the ground, forcing herself up. Her legs buckled, then held. Cade gave her a sharp nod. Good. No praise. No reassurance. Just expectation. Because she wasn't helpless. She was built for war. And war was coming. The first machine struck like lightning, its metal claws slicing toward her throat. But this time, Mira was ready. Her body moved before her mind could process it, her cybernetic limbs kicking in with raw, instinctual precision. She ducked, lower than any human should be able to move, and drove her blade upward, punching it straight through the machine's core. It twitched, sputtered, died. She ripped her weapon free and turned, just as another enemy lunged. Too slow. Mira sidestepped, her new legs carrying her with impossible speed, and slammed a fist into the machine's skull. Metal cracked. The war drone stumbled, and she finished it with a brutal kick, sending it crashing into the ruins. Her breath came fast, but steady. No hesitation. No second guessing. Her cybernetics weren't fighting against her anymore. They were a part of her now. Cade let out a low whistle. Now you're getting it. Mira grinned. Took me a second. Another war drone charged, its red eyes locking onto her. She didn't retreat. She ran toward it. This time, she wasn't just reacting. This time, she was hunting. The battle blurred into something primal. Metal clashed against metal. Sparks lit the ruins like dying stars. Mira moved without thought, her blade carving through steel, her body twisting and striking in ways no human should be able to. The war machines fought in formation. Precise. Efficient. Unrelenting. But Mira fought like something they had never encountered before. Unpredictable. Relentless. She wasn't human anymore. She was more. One by one, the machines fell. Cade fought beside her, gunfire tearing through enemy ranks. But he wasn't leading anymore. Mira was. The last war drone staggered back, sparks pouring from its shattered frame. It scanned her, its artificial mind struggling to process what it was seeing. It hesitated. Mira didn't. She ripped through it in a single strike. Silence fell. The battlefield was hers. She stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of machines that had once hunted her. Her breath was steady. Her body was alive with power. Cade stepped forward, holstering his weapon. He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, he smirked. "I told you," he said. "I didn't just fix you." Mira exhaled, feeling the electricity humming beneath her skin. "I know," she said. Because she wasn't just walking again. She was something else now. Something the machines had never prepared for. Something unstoppable. He was still prey.